My name is Cassy Summers. Welcome to the Curious Universe podcast. Welcome back to another episode. So grateful you're here. Today, I would like to explore with you doing things for the pleasure of it or doing things for the pain of it. Now, this one might be a little bit of I'm going to say challenge to get us to where I'd like to go in this short kind of time frame we have together in this particular format, but I get we can get there. So let's see what's possible. We know that some people tend to do things on the pleasure side, right? I like to look at it. Actually, this is like a simplified way. So when you have a meal, let's say someone prepares a meal for you, and maybe this was like a great example of growing up, and there's usually stuff on your plate that you like really love, that you're really excited for. And then there's the stuff that's like kind of, you're less excited for. Are you the person that eats your favorite things first? Are you the person that gets the stuff out of the way that you don't really like? This will tell you a lot about yourself if you look at this for a minute. So if you are a hedonistic person, if you are a pleasure seeker, if you are always living life and choosing based on the pleasure of it, most likely you choose the things that you really love, and you would happily toss away the things that you're not desiring to eat. Now, if you're the other way and you're the kind of person that's like, just going to get stuff done and I'll power through and I'll eat all the stuff that I don't want to eat. And then if there's space left over, I'll have the pleasure. That's not someone that actually makes pleasure seeking a priority, right? Now, for what reason do we seek pain? This is what I would like to get to, if it's possible with you today, is to look at maybe in a lot of aspects of your life, you do seek pleasure, but are there places where you actually seek pain and haven't acknowledged it yet? Boom. I'm saying boom because for myself, when I've really looked at this and I've really acknowledged there's certain things and I'm like, oh, this is such a pain in my ass, essentially. Yet it's like I keep choosing that same type of person, or I keep choosing this, or I keep choosing that, and then I'm suffering the pain of it, right? It can even be in your life like debt or overspending. It could look like a lot of different things. But when you can get to the vulnerable place of acknowledging, holy, I have actually been seeking pain. I've been doing it for the pain. Okay. Like work hard for your money. That's a great example of where we will take the painful route to create the money. And usually for some kind of crazy reason in our head, then we feel like we've earned it. We feel like we've deserved it. If I can, oh my God, proving friendship used to be a big one for me. So if, say, someone needed help, let's use a flat tire example. I've never actually saved anyone from a flat tire, but let's pretend. So friend calls, they have a flat tire. So if I was seeking pleasure in this scenario, it would be very different than the way I behave. And this is how I would seek the pain. So I would, first of all, probably be in the middle of something and not want to drop everything and go save my friend from the tire situation. But I would actually seek out how to make it as painful as possible to go and save my friend from this tire. For what reason? So that I could prove that I was a good friend And I could prove to myself that I wasn't an awful person because it wasn't exciting for me to go save them, to drop everything I was doing to go save them, which makes me feel like I must be an awful person because I should feel really great about doing that. So then I will make it even more painful, like literally seeking out the pain so that I can have the small little morsel, we're back to the food, little morsel of pleasure of contributing to my friend. Now, what would that scenario look like differently if you were seeking pleasure? It might look at like calling them a cab. It might look like actually acknowledging, oh, you know what? I would love to go see them in person. How can we make this fun? Maybe I'll pick us up some coffees on the way. Maybe we could go out for lunch while the car's being like fixed somewhere, right? You could actually look to create a pleasurable experience, or you can look to make it painful. I see this all the time in the people, even in the work environment. So often they are looking to make something more painful to prove that they're a good employee or that they deserve the money that they're making that they've already decided that they don't deserve. So in your life, are you seeking pleasure or are you actually seeking pain and haven't acknowledged it? A relationship example is great. So you could have the pleasure of cooking like your loved one a meal, right? So you go out and you like pick a recipe and you buy like the most delicious ingredients, and then you spend all this time cooking this meal, and you're like pouring your like affection into the food, and you're so excited to eat it with them. And this is like a whole, and then you're like, how can I set the scene for them? And it's a whole pleasurable experience, right? Hopefully you've experienced someone doing that for you, or you've done it for someone else. Or you could do it from seeking pain of like, oh, hope you appreciate this meal because I had to go to 4 different stores to get the ingredients because the one I went to, this one didn't have it, and this one didn't have it, and this one didn't have it. And then this took me like 2 hours to make. And I got this phone call from my mom while I was in the middle of trying to cook this. And like, yeah, like, do you see like that energy? And then it's like, so you've created all this pain to experience like a small amount of pleasure, hopefully that they like the food. And all to what end? So what if everything that you thought you were going to get out of from seeking pain is not nearly as great as what you could get out of seeking pleasure? Mm-hmm. So this is list time. If you watch my show at all, I love lists. I'm always inviting you to make lists. I'm a list person. You don't have to do it. You could do it in your head. You could ignore me. It's up to you. But I would write a list of all the things that you find yourself doing when you're actually seeking pain. This is going to take some vulnerability and some self-awareness, because often we think it's circumstantial. But we create everything in our lives, literally. Like we create everything in our lives. So somewhere you created this, whether you created it in the past by like something you set up and something you chose, you're creating it in that moment, not realizing that you're creating it, which is where I was. And really look at this financially, look at this with your relationships, look at this with your business, if you have a business, your job, your career, whatever it is for you, even with your family, with your kids. Do you create like, oh, I do so much for my kids, to kind of create the suffering, the pain of being a parent rather than the pleasure of being a parent? Yeah, I could perceive some like awarenesses popping off. So if you started to seek pleasure in every area of your life, what you actually do then is you involve the universe, which includes everyone and everything, right? And you start to invite the universe to craft, create, actualize your whole life as a pleasure rather than a pain. So all of these possibilities will start to show up, not of possibilities to have more pain. Like, oh, after I save the friend, then I get home and then, oh my God, now the dog needs to go to the vet. And then this happens. And so it's just a constant seeking of pain, right? Because that's the order you put into the universe. You said, universe, this is what's valuable to me. This is what I want. But if you start to flip it, the universe will set up more possibilities for you to choose pleasure. Now you have to actually take the action to choose the pleasure, because if you don't, the universe is going to think you don't want it. Choose the pleasure, choose the pleasure, choose the pleasure. And what will start to get created is a whole reality for you based on pleasure rather than pain. Doesn't that sound like so much more fun? To have that, you might have to let go of some of the things that you have decided around the rewards or the punishments for seeking pain. So you might have this like presumptive reality that if your boss doesn't see how painful it is to work, then they'll, cut your salary or they're going to fire you or whatever. You have to let that go. And it might show up. You might be aware. And then if that's the case, just pretend to be suffering, but don't actually suffer. Get sneakier. If your partner needs you to look like you've had a hard day, like have the most pleasurable day, but just mess up your hair at the end of the day before you're going to see them and get out of breath or something. Like I've been running around all day. If you require that to make your life easier, pretend the pain. But what if you didn't have to live the pain anymore? And here's the thing is that when you choose pleasure, when you start to have a life that is filled with pleasurable moments, you're seeking pleasure, you're choosing it, you're saying yes to it, you inspire people around you that maybe they're like, oh, I thought we were supposed to be suffering here. We're allowed to choose that? Oh my gosh. And then they'll choose it. And what kind of world will we create if we have people literally willing to choose the things that give them pleasure rather than always choosing the things that create pain and suffering in their lives? You don't have to prove anything about you. You really don't. And when I look at, for me, that was all the suffering always, when it came down to the bare bones of it, it was all about proving something. It was about proving that I was a good employee. It was about proving that I was a good partner. It was a good parent. For me, it always stemmed from proving. For you, it might be a little different. You're going to have to get curious and look inside yourself and explore that for you. What is it? Maybe it's just like entrainment. Oh, that's what my mom always did. I don't know. I just started to do it. That's what it could be just what you've mimicked from other people. Or there could be something behind it where you do have this fear of a punishment if you aren't suffering, or you're supposed to get this reward. Like, oh my God, if they could just see how much effort I put into this, how hard this was for me, they're going to finally realize how much I love them. Well, that never actually works. I'm sorry to tell you and break that bubble for you. Because if someone actually requires you to suffer for them to see that you care for them, then that's a whole universe of stuff that they have going on that has nothing to do with you. And anyone that needs you to suffer to prove love and to receive love, is that actually the way you want to create your life? And have you ever requested that of someone else, that they require to suffer to prove to you that they care? Do you actually want them to suffer? Is that your reality, or did you buy that from someone or something else? Did you think that that's how you were supposed to show love? That's how it was supposed to be, right? Romeo and Juliet, let's suffer love, the greatest tragedy. There is a different possibility available for you. And I invite you to really explore that difference that you can choose with pleasure seeking in all areas of your life. And you can just start with one. It could literally be with the meal, like eat the stuff that you're most excited for. Eat the stuff that's going to bring you the most pleasure. And you might not even finish the rest of the meal. What if that's okay? What if you don't have to suffer your meal? What if you could just actually let the suffering go? What if you could choose the pleasure rather than the pain? Thank you so much for exploring this topic with me. We got where I wanted to go. I knew we could because we're awesome. Let me know. I always really love hearing feedback, and I've had some amazing people write into me, especially this last month, about the podcast. So I'm curious to know how it impacts you, and any topics that you would really like to explore with me, things that you're maybe struggling with or kind of would like some more clarity about. I love engaging with the audience, so please let me know. I got you. And let's get curious together next week on the Curious Universe podcast. Bye for now. Thank you for exploring the Curious Universe with me. Your curiosity matters. And what if together we could create a greater, more curious world?